14th, Legislative and Policy Committee meeting. If we can please do a roll call.
Moran.
Present.
Balich.
Here.
Harris. Krolitis.
Here.
Markham.
Here.
Ogalla. Parker. Staley Ferry. And Hart.
We do it.
We also have Herb Brooks. We do have a quorum.
Speaking of Herb, can we leave?
Sure.
Pledge allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Real quick, I just want to go ahead and get a motion for our minutes for October 9th.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, Brett, can you hear us?
Brett and Jim.
Brett and Jim?
Yeah.
Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. This is Jim Smith. I'll just start it off and let Brett follow me. Obviously, the elections were held last week. Congress comes back into session today. They've been in recess since the beginning of October. There will be a lame duck session. There are a few essential items that they must take care of before they adjourn for the year, primarily appropriations. Before they recessed, they passed about half of the appropriations bills, but there are still several bills unfinished, including transportation and housing and urban development. Just what they will take up beyond that is uncertain at this time. We'll probably get a better sense of that after members start arriving into town later today. One piece of business that's unfinished, though, is the Farm Bill. As you may recall, both the House and Senate enacted their own versions of the Farm Bill back in September. There were major differences between the two bills. They did convene a conference committee, but were unable to reach any resolutions, the biggest difference being the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program. They'll be in probably for a few weeks before Thanksgiving. Whether it goes the lame duck goes any further than that at this time is just unclear. The two caucuses will start electing leadership probably later this month, and then the new Congress will be sworn in early January. I'll turn it over to Brett.
Yeah, I'll touch a few things that Jim touched on. Right now, the current election results stand in the House at 227 to 197. That's a 32-seat pickup by Democrats. There's still 11 undecided seats that remain. In the Senate, it's a 51 to 47 result right now, with Florida and Mississippi still undecided. As Jim mentioned, the Farm Bill is going to be likely worked on. There's 7 bills that remain to be finished, and that's only about $300 billion of the entire discretionary budget, because the defense and labor, HHS, education bills were passed prior to that. And that's the majority of discretionary spending. Congress is likely to potentially touch on the tax extenders. That includes several tax provisions that are extended annually or every 2 years. There's likely to be some disaster relief for wildfires. They're talking about a $720 million package, and then potentially some work on the autonomous vehicles legislation. That passed the House, but it's been held up in the Senate, and depending on that outcome, if that's pushed into the 116th Congress, they're going to have to work on completely new legislation, with a House Democratic still kind of leading the way, which will mean there will be some changes to that legislation in the House. Moving on to the 116th Congress, I'm sure a lot of you are very in tune to what's been discussed. I think infrastructure is certainly a potential area where there can be some agreement. the likely incoming chairman of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, Peter DeFazio from Oregon, wants to, he has mentioned he wants to pass a bill in the House within 6 months, an infrastructure bill that can include several modes of infrastructure, surface transportation. It could include some waterways. It could include aviation. Of course, the next Congress is also going to have to deal with the reauthorization of the FAST Act, which is the Surface Transportation Authorization Bill that was passed, and it was a 5-year bill. The debt ceiling runs out March 2nd. They'll likely be able to use their extraordinary measures to continue that through the end of summer, but they will have to come to an agreement on that. They'll have to come to an agreement on a new spending cap deal for fiscal year 2020. As you all know, there was a big budget agreement passed for fiscal year 18 and 19 that made it possible to pass bills a little easier. And then there may be some different tax legislation here and there, and some legislation addressing prescription drug prices, and that's kind of what folks are looking at. Clearly, with the Democrats being in power in the House, there's going to be some additional oversight in areas that weren't looked at in the 115th Congress. But right now, they're just kind of getting things started. New members are in Washington this week getting orientation, and that goes on the House and Senate side.
Does anyone
Any questions?
Nick, we were talking briefly about what we're going to be, and I say we, what all of you are going to be doing with the federal agenda moving forward, and the structure as well. And we'll go on and talk about state priorities after. But right now with federal, is there anything that you want to put out there, or how you want to go? Like I said, you had some really good ideas about broad spectrum about what we can.
We met last week with the state legislative, so I'm not going to repeat that necessarily because I know we're going to talk about that next. But we talked with Julie and Brent and Reagan as part of that meeting.
Right.
And some of our issues overlap between the state and federal, obviously. The transportation projects, the opioid stuff. So we thought we were going to, and we're open to ideas from new elected officials, existing elected officials, department heads, whomever, but kind of building off what we've done in the past with the infrastructure, really focusing on the big projects. And we've been working with Jeff Ronaldson and others on the freight implementation. So some of those things, telling that story and focusing in on projects, because at the state level, you're going to potentially have a capital bill. Federal level, obviously, any funding we can chase there. So, but Jim and Brett may want to comment too on what we should maybe be focusing on, separate from what we've done in the past. But I think it's going to be similar, just because those are our priorities for Will County, have been
Right.
in both agendas. So
I think that's an excellent idea. Brett, Jim, do you have comments on that?
Yeah. So I think I concur with kind of Nick's assessment. With the next Congress coming in, we certainly want to focus on infrastructure, especially if we feel like, and we do feel like, that's probably the most likely area of agreement where there might be legislation. And at the very least, we need to position ourselves for discretionary grant programs that have been authorized through 2020, and we know we'll be putting out money on the next couple of fiscal years. So I think we certainly want to make sure that the delegation, the administration, some of the new committee staff are aware of Will County's priorities. I think we've talked about this year in, year out, that you guys can continue to build your story, your federal agenda, and elevate your needs in Washington. And I think we want to continue that process. I don't think it's any coincidence that you guys have done well when it comes to opioid discretionary grant programs, whether that's justice or health related. You guys have been leaders in that area. You know, we go in year out to HHS and SAMHSA, where a lot of that money's being allocated from. And I think both the discretionary dollars that you guys apply for directly to the federal folks, and also the money that gets sent to the state and the state reallocates it. I think there's a reason why you guys do well in that department. And then, you know, you guys, you're a big county, you have a lot of needs, and I think what's great about our federal agenda is that while we kind of have 2 or 3 main priorities, we make sure that we touch on all these other issues that impact you all, whether that's some of the CDBG, home dollars that you receive annually, or the EMPG, the Homeland Security funding that you receive annually. I think we want to continue that and make sure some of these new folks in the delegation are aware of the priorities of Will County and everything that you guys, you know, utilize federally.
Yeah, and this is Jim, I would just add to that, I happened to have a meeting with Congressman DeFazio just a week before the election. He's the next chairman of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. And one of the things he mentioned was that he fully intends to bring earmarks back to transportation. So that remains to be seen, but that's his intention. And I know we have a lot of transportation needs and priorities, so it'll be important to really hone in on what the top projects are going forward.
Brett and Jim, we've talked about, I think, some of this before, but the one thing, a couple things locally that are coming back, the DuPage River study, that work is kind of in that first phase is being completed. So that, I believe, has to go back to Congress then for, if there is authorization eligible, because that had to be justified. The cost benefit analysis study was what we've been doing the last several years. So that we can gather the current information on that and talk about that. Also, Suzanne had brought up before, she and I both saw in NACO had a story about 911 funding and the possible federal action to limit states from sweeping those dollars, which has been a problem in Illinois. And that's one of those issues that kind of bridges the federal and the state, because it's been a problem for our ETSB for the county here. So that may be something we want to look at both agendas.
I think this would be an excellent year to really go and do that push of having it, Nick. I thank you for bringing that up. It kind of left me.
And then the last issue, just as throwing it out there as an idea to talk about, I know Hugh's in the Hugh will hear from our Will County governmentally. There's been an effort on the locks and dam issue, and that covers a lot of bases, both from an economic standpoint, an environmental standpoint, and a bunch of other issues. So that too could be both a federal issue, and it has been with the Asian carp, but also a state issue. And where the funding comes from, or hopefully comes from, to help with that, because that's a major issue for the movement of grain and just other aggregate up and down the canal. So that may be something we want to look at kind of as a specific issue, but it fits into some of these infrastructure bills. So
yeah, I think that all 3 of those play well into the narrative, the county's narrative. Certainly, you know, we're going to have a comprehensive infrastructure piece in the agenda, and with luck, you know, I think it makes total sense to wrap in the DuPage River study issue and next steps, as well as the lock and dam issue with Asian carp. And you know, the delegation in the past has been aware of that, and they've, you know, had joint letters with folks from Michigan, but we want to continue to make sure that's a priority. And then in terms of the 911 funding, the federal action on the sweeping, you know, I think they'll have to reintroduce that bill. It did go anywhere in this Congress, but I think we can elevate that, and I think we can also push NACO to elevate that, because I recall there were only a few co-sponsors of that bill, but it's an issue in a lot of states, so I think we could really build some momentum around that.
That would be a really good, also, you know, thinking with new representatives of Will County Congress, of getting in and being able, it's going to have to be an educational process, and to be able to also educate these new congressmen and to know, because that's, I mean, there's going to be a lot of things for them to go ahead and absorb. So that should be, you know, no one has, and if I didn't sit Nick and I didn't sit on 911, I would not have understood or really knew the magnitude of what has been going on with these dollars. I mean, they're playing with our tax dollars. It's amazing, because what's also happening, because Springfield would sweep these dollars, it doesn't allow us to get these grants on the federal level, and it's just absurd. A lot of people don't realize that, and I'm sure our new congressmen do not know as well. So we got to go that angle, and as well of putting in of what we've had in the past, but making it a little bit, you know, I was looking at the books last night, and yes, I've been on the board for 8 years, I've been on Legislative for 8 years, and I have all 8 books. And I was just kind of looking at them last night and looking to see what we could tweak and do different. And Nick, you and I had a nice talk yesterday about this. I think this could be something of really putting into a different format, and we're going to have to, you know, remember, you know, when you guys go down to DC, this is all very new for some, and some they've been doing this and helping us for years. So I think it'll work, but we just maybe have to go with a different format. All right. And Brett, I do owe you a call back, so if we can kind of chat later this afternoon, that would be great. Is there anyone that has anything else? Okay. Well, thank you for the call-in. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, well, you can stay right there. We're going to talk
That's good, so, yeah.
about, move right on to state, the state legislative update, and not update, excuse me, priorities for next year. And as we were just talking, and we have, I see some of our department heads that are directors that are in here, and you know, that's been my big initiative. And every year, especially like this time, of like, we need to find out what is important onto these departments. Where are you at? The other thing that we've been kind of more so in the last couple years of getting involved with the various organizations, the highway engineer, you know, you have your organization, the clerk's organization, and the different departments, and kind of looking at what they're doing as a whole, because when anyone who has sat in that chair and said, you know, when Bob Contro sits there and says, this is, you know, what we're looking at, and the first thing we said, where's the sheriff association? Where is the, you know, your state association? Where are they on this? We work better in numbers. And that's, you know, we've been trying to kind of come up with the right formula to kind of figure that out. Last week, Julie and Brent were in, and we're talking about setting out a day, putting out a day, and having to come in, the department head, saying, here's our issues. This is what we would like to see, and this is how it's going to go in better Will County. And that's what we're going on. We can kind of maybe start off of a few initiatives, and like I said, you know, looking over at Jeff, you know, we've been in constant contact because he's, you know, transportation, that's our #1, you know, thing that we have going of, and pushing and trying to get these dollars, and talking about quick take and Tiger grants and everything else down the pipe. And I know kind of where we were at of trying to get in front of a lot of this initiative, and that I would hope that I would think that this theme is going to stay down the pipe. And Nick, you had, I know, some ideas and what we could.
Well, we talked about with Brent and Julie the other day. One thing. Sorry. One of the things, and maybe this is throwback to you, Suzanne, is we were talking about the State Counties Association that's still coming together,
Yes.
and they have a meeting, I believe, on Friday down in
Springfield.
Springfield. But this is the Illinois State Association of Counties. The goal is to be the official one organization, NACO affiliate for the state of Illinois, which we haven't had in the past. And this is basically, there's a governing board that Suzanne is currently a member of, and then there's like sub-departments or sub-committees underneath that, one being the countywide elected leaders from the Collier counties and Cook, one being a large urban caucus organization, and then they were talking, I don't think it's moved too far yet, but they're talking about setting up a rural
Right.
caucus, kind of like,
grows.
as membership grows and they expand downstate. But that is going to be a vehicle that we can all use, hopefully, to push our legislation, both our individual stuff on our own, but also within that organization. So that was part of our
Well,
discussion.
that's gonna be an excellent source for, I mean, that's the whole end goal, is to have the one county organization. We know that it's possibly not gonna be able to accomplish that, for the fact that, like, downstate, we still have a couple, we're just trying to get it under one umbrella, and to have this kind of go, and it'll be, you know, ISACO will be that of the feeder for NACO. And as Nick was just saying, in the different structures of the different caucuses, you know, it's like when we talk about LUC, the Large Urban Caucus, well, that's kind of where the Collier counties would be, of having, and then having their lobbyists. So to have our lobbyists that of Will County, because we still have different, you know, of course, we have our different, we talked about this of transportation. We have different I mean, we have some very much the same, you know, let's get, you know, these dollars, you know, for Illinois, and, you know, let's get trains, you know, automobiles and everything else as of one. But Will County still has their own agenda that we need to go ahead and push forward. But there's different priorities for the northern Collier counties than what the counties up downstate. And that's why we kind of talking about this, and I've been working, you know, everyone knows how much I've been doing with this Illinois Association of Counties, but of just trying to get the different, you know, as counties, we all have that one goal, and then the different, as you're going downstate, central Illinois, and then you're going down to the downstate. So this, hopefully, this will, and Herb and I had a nice talk about this yesterday as well. And this is still so important in this initiative of what we're going to do. Again, strong in numbers.
Now, I got a question. The other association that we're not talking about is fully funded, viable, doesn't cost the county any money to be a member of.
Which one is it?
The one that supposedly was kaput, but it wasn't kaput. When
Oh,
we
no,
went-
no, you have that confused. You have
They're
that
not
confused.
kaput. We saw them when we
No,
were.
that's a whole, there's four. Okay, so there's
The one
one
that
that's
was-
gone, there's now three.
There was
okay,
one
and-
that said that we could join for free, and they also offered education classes for us and a lot of other things.
Oh, it's, UC State,
I don't remember the name.
Macquarie.
But,
And guess what? They are with us. So they did.
I'm not
come.
saying that don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that we don't belong to
You and I will
these
talk
things.
after,
I'm just
because
saying that the other one is just as valuable as this one, and it's free, as opposed to having to shell out a boatload of money for a
It's not,
huge
actually.
office and staff and the rest of it. That's what's gonna happen with the other one, because we already told that. So,
Excuse
well,
me.
you know what, I don't wanna get in an argument in the committee about it, but I'm
Yeah, I'll
just
talk
saying,
to
we
you
need
about
to
it
look
after,
at
'cause you've
the
been
other
wrongly-
one also,
right,
because there's
misinformed.
no cost to the other one, and there's a big cost to this one. So, that's all I wanna bring up.
Apples and oranges, these organizations.
There is a cost, Steve, but the reason one for the unifying under one is it's partially funded by NACO, which they weren't doing at all before because we didn't have a unified front. Illinois had at least 3 organizations, but also they weren't very effective when it came to things like that affected counties. We sometimes got left behind, whereas the IML, who represents municipalities, did a much better job of advocating for their constituency. So the goal of this is to have a unified voice on issues that affect counties, so that if the General Assembly is deciding to make financial decisions that are negative for counties, that we have a unified voice. Because unfortunately, there were good people involved in all those organizations, but they weren't as effective as they could have been. And that's the goal. This is to be more effective, because in the long run, it should save us money or protect the money we should be getting. And a specific example is that, like the local distributed fund. They took $2.4 million a couple of years from our that should have come to us. That's blowing a hole, in our budget, along with the administrative fee, which some of that's probably going to be a reality, but how much is going to depend on how strong our fight is to push back against it. So I think that is the goal, and ultimately, and Suzanne can expand this if she wants, is they're also looking to get sponsors so that the cost won't be as great for the membership organizations.
You know, all I'm pointing out is that having that other group that we don't ever talk about.
We do
But they
talk
didn't-
about
but
it,
they
and I
didn't-
go
We
to
don't
their
talk
meetings.
about it, we said it was kaput about 6
No,
months
that,
ago.
You're talking
that's
about a
about
different
Metro County,
organization.
which is a
That's
different
Metro County.
organization,
But-
which has,
but the
which
point
costs
is,
us money
If
too.
the- No,
That was
the
Metro
one I'm talking about there was no cost.
But they weren't effective, Steve.
But
they did
if
it
this
was a
group
dump
all
site.
went with that group, maybe they would be effective. We were supposed to be a member, and
You're
I don't
not-
know if we
you know
are or
what,
not.
Steve, and I'm not-
I'm just pointing out, they have a huge office and a lot of staff with this other group. And, you know, there's an expense involved. Now, that's fine if we're gonna be part of it, but there's an expense. The other group, there is no expense. And I don't like the idea of expenses when they're unneeded, because all that does is raise the taxes, and people around here already got problems with their damn taxes. Everybody in Illinois got a problem with taxes,
Steve,
so I don't
please,
like
Steve.
spending.
Honestly,
I like
you're
effective
not
organizations
understanding
though,
this.
so that's
And
what
we're
we're
not-
trying to do, is
right.
effective
And I will talk to
organization,
you after.
streamlining from 3 to 1 organization that'll be effective, not ineffective.
And this group that you speak of is a part of our group, I say go. So we are of one, and we're trying to go and unify, okay? So maybe next time you go to NACO, go to a membership meeting, and you can maybe educate yourself a little bit more on what our whole goal is and what we have done. Judy?
So it's very much like Will County Farm Bureau. Every county has their own farm bureau, and then we have the Illinois Farm Bureau. They're our leader. They're the ones that push through our legislation that protects the farmers, and we're very strong because of that, very strong because of that. So it is good to have one group, you go
One
subgroups underneath with the counties, but we are one group when we go to Springfield. And then they're able also then to hire a fabulous lobbyist, they have fabulous attorneys and stuff like that that can lead us in those pushes. So right now, being three different ones, you're not as strong as having one united front. That is so true. Regardless, the end cost is probably less because you are now united and you should have a stronger voice. That's what I think.
And Steve, I'll talk to you after, and when you hear, you'll 100%
You
understand.
remember at NACO,
Okay,
the
so
argument I had with
now,
all the people?
Now, what we're going to do,
Well, just
if we're
so
gonna
you
go.
know, I
Okay,
remember
Steve,
everything.
please, we have a lot going on.
I got a
So,
good brain.
we have,
Yes, you do.
is there any, do you
You
have,
might not think so, Nick, but I do, you smile at me.
Jeff?
It would be something, I don't know what's now, because you said that.
Yes, I would just bring up, I'll be getting Nick and Reagan our specific projects for the federal agenda, so that you can comment on it, add more to it, so that you can work with on that respect. Illinois Association of County Engineers met, Revenue Committee met a couple weeks ago. The IAC has now come up with a one-page paper of a needs analysis of what transportation needs just to maintain the system. So I had that one-page document. If there is going to be a revenue bill coming up in the very near future, IAC is asking that all the counties use this document to whatever it means necessary to reach the legislators and help get a vote, favorable vote to whatever this revenue bill might be coming in the future. So I can get that to you as well. So if there's questions on, of course the needs are big, but we've done the research and have those numbers. So.
The other thing we were talking about, and I've asked you, I think like every month, where we're at, because this bill for the minorities, that is going to, I'm hearing, I had a meeting last week, and I'm definitely hearing that Representative Davis' bill will go forward. So, is that something that you're still working on? And
When it comes up and we see the particulars in the bill again, I think we'll be ready. It wasn't really talked about much lately because we're kind of focusing on the revenue at the moment.
because we were saying Chicago, they have been doing this. So I
There
don't
are
think there's.
examples out there we can
Right,
find information.
and you talk about this, I know it's your organization, and your, what,
NACE? NACE?
Yes.
what's NACE stand for?
Well, it's a national, so
National Association of
Oh, right,
Engineers.
yes. I thought that was some acronym for this.
all kinds of activities.
Good name.
Sure. Either one or whatever.
Good name.
All right, thank you, Jeff.
So, I didn't want to get off track with the SACO, but the other things I'll just run down, and these are
Okay.
things that we're
Right.
hoping to bring back to the committee. we talked about a capital bill, there's a real potential for that, so that's kind of filling up what Jeff just was talking about, road and bridge. We also talked with Brent and Julie about the tollway, you know, the potential of them coming in for I-80, us taking a more formal or articulating what our county's position is on that. Julie and Brent thought that would be helpful, so spelling out exactly what we're willing to support or not support. The other thing is just expanding on previously what we've had about the funding issues, about the local distributed fund, administrative fees. We always state our core principles about unfunded mandates and things like that, but I think we can beef that up a little and talk about what those unfunded mandates cost Will County, because both when we go to Washington, but I would argue even in Springfield, legislators like to know, how does it impact my district? So if we can give them specific examples, which we have, we can talk about that. The other thing we want to talk about, health department funding, River Valley funding, all those funding issues we hear about during the year, doing a little more robust job of defining what that is. I'm glad Judy's back, because we talked about the airport exemption issue, which will be expiring soon. So we're going to have to push legislation, get a legislator to support that, because until they decide what the final plan is, we have to have that in there, because that, right, I mean, whether they pay it or not is another issue, but if we don't have the authority to even collect it, which we won't when this expires, so we need to do that, so we'll work together on that. The other issues just that are ongoing issues in other parts of county government, but we may want to talk about, are water issues, just with the drinking water, which there's a number of groups working on that, we know, but then the CCDD stuff is kind of working its way through the process, the locks and dams, which I already mentioned, and then the plan, and this is what Suzanne touched on at the beginning, was having, and we've done this with the federal agenda before, putting a formal ask out with almost like a template, spell out what issues are concerned, whether department or elected official. Write something up, even if it's very, very rough. Then we bring them in for a half-hour, 45-minute meeting, and like I say, we've done that with Brett and Jim. That was very effective, because then we can hash it out, but they also have it in advance, so they can kind of do some homework ahead of time and makes those meetings more effective. But we were thinking people like Rhonda Novak, Jeff Reynolds, and the new elected officials and the existing elected officials, if they want to talk about issues that their associations are bringing up. But until we have something to work with, this committee is kind of limited in what we can do. So we have to have that spelled out a little more, and we'd like to do that work offline so that we can bring it back to the committee. And I don't want to forget the courts too, because there's probably going to be a lot of issues with juvenile justice issues and things like that. And I mentioned 911 earlier. 911, there's still, even though we've gotten through the consolidation for the most part, there's still issues that come up with that. So that's kind of a quick laundry list, but if there's other things that board members want us to be looking into, we can collectively work on those and get white papers drafted so that at least we can bring something back and then the committees can debate. But the thought was from our lobbyists was that shooting for February passage maybe, because that's not going to be too late, because just with the reorganization at
How
state
many
level.
how many new members?
I
57,
forget, there's quite a few at the state level.
872, yeah. it is.
And with staff changes at the executive branch level too, that's, as we know in Washington, when they shifted away from earmarks, those who've gone to Washington, we spent a lot of time going to agencies, which was very effective. And the same could be said in Springfield. Jeff and I and Reagan and others have met with DOT staff quite a bit, and we're going to hopefully have some more meetings with them. But that's where we pull all this together, and why we've been working out in Eastern Will County. Judy and Lori were part of a meeting out there. We're making progress. It's slow, but it's making progress of getting the local communities, and we want to bring in the townships to that discussion. They've been involved a little bit, but getting them focused so that we can, when we go to our agendas, we can say it's not just a county road, but it's the state, the federal, and the locals all interacting to serve.
To tell one story.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying earlier, and going back, it's going to be an educational process. There's going to be all new, over there in IDOT. We don't know. It was the same thing when Blankenhorn got in there. We had to kind of go back in and do our ask and to explain. So you're right. It's going to be the different, not just with the legislators, but with the different departments. that sit down in Springfield as well as DC. Yes?
Hi. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Roger Howland. I'm the trial court administrator. The chief judge asked me to bring up one issue today for the legislative committee, and I thought I'd make it really
Can you
quick.
sit down?
Yeah, sure. John Prenzy's with me. He's the head of probation. This won't take but a minute. The Illinois General Assembly did not fund the Illinois court system as it had in the past. It made a significant cut in the amount of funding that was available to the AOIC. As a result, the administrative office has reduced the amount of reimbursement that is coming back to the county for probation officers. And I asked John to do some math for me, and for this year, starting in December, it'll be to the tune of $619,000 for probation if the funding is not increased. So the Administrative Office of Illinois Courts has requested a supplemental appropriation of the General Assembly, and it is our hope that that will be successful and that will raise us back to the level that we were at in previous years. But it dropped it from somewhere in the high 80s down to somewhere in the mid to high 60s, so percentile-wise. So it was a significant cut, and it will have could have a significant impact on the budget. So we're hopeful that the legislation that's being proposed will pass, but I thought the committee ought to be aware of it, and hopefully it will pass, and then we will be back at the levels that we have been in the past.
Yeah.
Okay?
I have that down. Nick, have you heard of it? It's just.
I mean, we've talked a little bit about them. I mean, just generally, there's a lot of issues. I mean, funding, that's why I mentioned like I didn't say probation, but River Valley, I know is a concern, has been a concern in the past about funding levels, but.
Right. I mean, that's not just, when I say probation, I mean court services. That includes River Valley, that includes our other probation officers. It's a very large number. 619,000 is a very large number. So we're hopeful that they will bring that number back. And but it was a decision that was made by the General Assembly to fund the courts, and it's not just something that's local to Will County. All probation departments took a hit, so it wasn't just us. So,
All right.
thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay. Right now, we have, is there any public comment? No announcements? No need for executive session?
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
I just want to prolong the meeting a little bit. The association that we are joining, this is a new organized, which is a part of some of the others and players.
It's ICA,
Correct.
Illinois Association of Counties, that we've always have been, that, and how it works is when you're with the state party, when you're with a state organization, it feeds into NACO, and it says, Herb is to go on to Luck. We're gonna put Don over there in transportation, so it kind of goes and it varies, because it has, there's a formula with it. In all the other states, for the most part, there's like 3 states that have more than one association, but for the most part, they have one state association, so they have one voice at their capital. What happens is it kind of goes and spiders and bears off, and where some of these associations, it got more into insurance.
Okay.
Okay, so they were selling insurance and doing that, and they have their association and they offer these, class or doing whatever. It is that funded because of what they are doing on the dividends of what they're receiving. Okay, that is the difference. This new association is no way getting involved with the insurance process. We're not doing anything of that. We are just going to be more of that voice in Springfield. And Hugh can attest to this when down there, and you could talk to any of your legislators and ask them, it's confused them for years of where counties stand and what issues. And I can name off 3 major bills in the 8 years. More than that, but that comes to mind immediately. What happened to us in Springfield because we didn't have that voice. So yes, there is, and, you know, we all have different goals of what we want the state association to be. Ours is to go down there and to have that voice and of what is going down in Springfield. Now, there's other variables of being NACO members and benefits that offer. And we are able to as well, because we also have the lowest NACO membership in the whole country. So there's other goals that go down the line here. And already of what I have seen in the unity, and this is again, like I said, a state organization. This isn't the Will County organization or the Collier County organization. This is that of the state, and to be able to help. And what we're divided, you know, we have the downstate, we have central, and we have Collier. So we can't have that. And the one thing, and you know, Steve has kept bringing up about what's going on, we're not selling insurance. That's where they're getting their dollar. It's a whole different avenue of what you're talking about. We're going down there more so of that of the legislative process. Matter of fact, our new director, and I think Hugh, you know him? Do you know?
I don't know the
Okay, so-
insurance.
Pardon me? Yes, I'm telling you. I'm
I
telling
I
you.
don't personally know it, so
I
until
do.
I know for
I
a fact
personally-
where I
we
read
did
it,
belong.
and I
That's
know.
why I asked the question, I wanted to get a
I
clarification, he did a very good job doing
Kirby's
that.
got the best point of this thing is, when I was
We're
talking
not buying
about, I
insurance
wasn't
from another
saying this is a bad group. I
Hugh,
was
did
just
you say
saying
you
that
had-
We gotta be very,
Okay,
very.
Steve, can we please, I just asked Hugh, one of our guests, for,
Do I know Joe?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Joe McCoy, who's the new director of that association, came from the Illinois Municipal League. Very well respected around the Capitol, did a lot of good stuff for IML. So I mean, it's a good pickup for you guys and a bit of a loss for us.
and it's, and there was, and like I said, there's some, I can come up with examples of where counties were kind of left on to the wayside, and like you're saying, where you've, municipalities were taken care of because of this structure. And that's really the whole long and short
I'm
of it.
not saying that the new group is bad. All I'm saying is that we gotta be careful of how much money we're gonna invest in the new group, because all of a sudden, you invest a boatload of money,
We're not
and
boatload.
it's not viable anymore because of the cost. And that's kind of where, when we were in NACO, that me and Ms. Sims had a real good discussion for about a half hour, if you remember. Because I didn't like it, if you remember that. And I had a good talk with her. And we walked away saying we're friends, but we disagree.
Then that's,
And to conclude, my question was, we are saving money by consolidating, and we are getting more bang for the buck, so to
That's
speak.
what's important.
right, and that's, you're 100% correct.
Thank you.
That is, we are very much saying, and this was our goal. It's the same reason why we have legislative committee. I mean, this is very much so important of what is going down, and for us to make sure that they're not taking our funds, to make sure that they're not putting unfunded mandates. I mean, these unfunded mandates that have gone down the pike and adhering, you know, counties.
Well, there's a
we get that.
statute, that the state has a statute on their books that they passed with no unfunded mandates, and Mary says they can go, they don't have to listen to their own thing because they wrote it. So everybody else can't have unfunded mandates, and they said they shouldn't have them, but the state says, well, too bad, we wrote the bill so we can break our law. That's a bunch of bull.
Right. So with that, can I, do you have any?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned, great.
Good, good.
I don't want to get in the camera.
Happy, happy, happy.
I'll probably see you, but if I don't, happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, same to you. No, I'm not gonna, well, that's next week,
That's-
Thursday.
Well, Thanksgiving's next week.
Next week or next Thursday? The week from Thursday.
Yeah, but my daughter goes, Mom, what are we doing for Thanksgiving? I go, oh, we got 2 weeks, honey. She goes, Mom, look at the calendar.
No, see, we're safe. We just mooch.
Oh, you
Yeah, we just go to this one couple's house, so it's safe.
It's like, oh my
Of course, I had to
God.
pay them back. And Mom, I said, we gotta take them out to dinner, so we took them to public landing in Lockport,
Oh, okay.
down by the canal. And 2 of them ordered filet mignon. They had a $300 bill.
Oh, ouch.
Yes.
Oh, ouch.
No, and I know, yeah. I mean, I can break them down, I have broken them down. You know, it's a big number. And then they cut it out,
When there's a kind of a kickoff meeting for a town trade, that we're part of that meeting. So far, that's worked really well. The expectations, make sure everyone's on board with the requirements that commissioning has for the project.
Anybody have any questions for White or Farnsworth? All right, hearing none, thank you very much for your report on the courthouse. Before I get on to the animal control, I was just told by Joel that they wanted to cancel the meeting on the 27th for award for the health department, the awards, bid package 2, and move it to the 13th. With bid